Silence is where the real transformation begins. When you strip away the noise, the opinions, the distractions, you're left with the rawest version of yourself. And that's exactly where strength is built. Most people are terrified of silence because silence exposes truth. It exposes weakness. It reveals everything you've been hiding behind words, behind excuses, behind other people's validation. When the world gets quiet and it's just you and your thoughts, that's when the real war starts. That's when you find out who you are, and most people don't want to face that. When you're silent, you start to hear the things you've been running from. You hear that inner voice that tells you the truth. The voice that says you're not giving enough, you're not focused enough, you've been lying to yourself. And at first it hurts because silence doesn't lie. It doesn't comfort you. It doesn't sugarcoat. It exposes. But that's the point. That's how strength is born, not in comfort, not in noise, but in the stillness where the truth can't be ignored. You can talk all day about what you want to become, but talking doesn't make it real. Action does. And action doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. When you stay silent and work, the results become your voice. That's the kind of strength that can't be faked. Because while others are busy talking, you're in the dark building, grinding, pushing through every ounce of resistance. You're not looking for motivation. You're creating it through your consistency. Silence is discipline. It's control. It's not reacting when you're tested, not complaining when you're tired, not explaining yourself to people who will never understand your grind. The moment you learn to shut your mouth and keep moving, you become untouchable. Because people can't use your emotions against you if they can't read you. They can't predict your next move when your focus is internal. Silence becomes your armor. You learn to operate in the shadows, not for attention, but for mastery. You start to realize that most of the noise around you is just distraction. People talking about what they're going to do, what they wish they could do, how unfair life is. You start to see through it. You see that talking gives people the illusion of progress, but it's just that, an illusion. When you go silent, you break that illusion. You put all that energy into action. Every ounce of frustration, every ounce of doubt, every ounce of pain becomes fuel. And over time, that fuel turns into momentum. That's how silent people move mountains while the loud ones argue about shovels. The silence is uncomfortable at first. You'll feel lost. You'll feel alone. You'll feel like no one sees what you're doing. And that's good. Because in that loneliness, you're forced to rely on yourself. You're forced to build your own validation instead of needing it from others. That's the foundation of real strength. Self-reliance. When you no longer need anyone to clap for you, you free yourself from the addiction to approval. You start doing things because they matter to you, not because you want to be seen doing them. That's when growth becomes natural. People think being silent means being weak or passive. It's the opposite. Silence takes power. It takes restraint. It takes maturity to hold back words, to absorb energy, and not let it throw you off your path. You learn to conserve your mental energy. You learn that every reaction costs something. Your focus, your time, your peace. And when you stop reacting, you start winning quietly. Every day becomes a quiet victory. Getting up early, putting in the reps, staying consistent when no one's watching. That's what builds strength that can't be shaken. Because when your power comes from within, it can't be taken from you. Silence gives you that. It strips away the external sources of strength, the praise, the validation, the noise, until the only thing left is you. And when you find out that you can rely on that you can push through the pain alone, that you can create progress in isolation, that's when you become dangerous. Not to others, but to your own limitations. When you learn to stay silent, you start hearing your instincts again. You start feeling what's right for you. You stop chasing trends, stop following the crowd, and start walking your own path. You realize that growth doesn't need to be announced. The tree doesn't make noise when it grows. It just breaks through the soil and keeps rising. That's how real strength works. Quiet, consistent, unshakable. In a world where everyone is shouting for attention, silence becomes your edge. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to announce your next move. You just execute. And when you execute long enough, people will have no choice but to notice. That's the irony. When you stop chasing recognition, that's when it comes naturally. Because people respect results, not promises. They respect the ones who stay quiet and deliver. Silence also gives you awareness. You start noticing the patterns. Who's real, who's fake, who talks and who acts. You stop wasting time explaining your vision to people who can't see it. You stop defending your goals to those who gave up on theirs. That's when you take back your focus. And focus is power. Every great transformation starts with that decision to shut out the noise and go to work. The truth is, silence isn't about staying quiet. It's about becoming still enough to hear your own strength. When you can sit with your pain and not flinch, when you can face your failures and not run, when you can move forward without needing noise to push you. That's when you found the kind of power that no one can take away. Stay silent. Stay disciplined. Let the work speak. Because when the time comes, your results will make more noise than your words ever could. Everything you've been chasing, the growth, the clarity, the peace, it all comes naturally when you stop forcing and start focusing. Silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing everything that matters without distraction, without validation, without noise. That's how you build unbreakable strength in the quiet, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, but you keep going anyway. The loudest people in the room are usually the weakest. They talk about what they're going to do, who they're going to become, and how unstoppable they are. But when it's time to act, they disappear. Noise is their armor. It's how they hide from their own lack of discipline. They think if they keep talking about the grind, it'll make up for not living it. But life doesn't care about what you say. It only responds to what you do. The real ones don't need to announce their journey. They just get up every single day and move in silence while everyone else is still bragging about taking the first step. There's a reason silence scares people. It removes the mask. When you stop talking, there's nowhere to hide. You're forced to look at your actions, your habits, your results. That's uncomfortable. It's easier to talk than to do. It's easier to post about your goals than to wake up early and chase them. It's easier to convince others you're working hard than to actually suffer in silence when no one's watching. The loud ones crave attention because it gives them temporary validation. But that validation doesn't build you. It weakens you. It tricks you into thinking you've made progress just because someone clapped for your words. True strength lives in silence. It lives in the person who doesn't need to broadcast their every move. It lives in the one who grinds quietly, who fails privately, who gets back up without making a scene. Because that person understands that noise doesn't add value. It doesn't move the needle. It just distracts. The ones who stay quiet are dangerous because they're unpredictable. You don't see their next move coming until it's already done. And by the time the world realizes it, it's too late. They've already leveled up. Loud people burn out fast. They need the constant energy of others to keep going. The silent ones, they generate their own fire. They don't need anyone to light it for them. They don't need someone to tell them they're doing great. They know exactly who they are and where they're headed. They've learned that progress isn't meant to be shouted about. It's meant to be built brick by brick through relentless effort. You can't fake consistency, and silence keeps you accountable. You can't talk your way into endurance. You have to earn it. When you see people constantly talking about success, understand that it's a defense mechanism. The noise is a distraction from the fact that they haven't achieved it yet. The quiet ones don't talk because they're too busy learning, too busy improving, too busy failing and adapting. Every moment they could spend explaining their vision, they spend executing it. That's why they grow faster. They aren't seeking validation, they're seeking mastery. Silence builds hunger. When you're not talking about what you're going to do, that energy stays inside you. It becomes pressure. It becomes drive. Every day you stay quiet, that energy compounds. It fuels your next move. When you finally show up, people think you came out of nowhere, but you didn't. You were building in the dark, starving for greatness, too focused to waste breath, proving anything to anyone. Noise is comfort. Silence is growth. The loud ones want to be seen as strong. The silent ones want to become strong. And there's a massive difference between being perceived as powerful and actually being powerful. Words can give you the illusion of power, but silence forces you to earn it. Because when no one's watching and there's no applause, no encouragement, you only have one option: to keep going. That's where real strength is forged. The loud talkers don't understand that every word spent bragging is energy lost. Energy that could have been used to take one more step, one more rep, one more late night. Every time they talk about how hard they're working, they're trying to convince themselves as much as they're trying to convince others. But the quiet ones don't need to convince anyone. They don't care who believes in them because they've already decided they will win. They've already made peace with the pain it'll take. Silence also exposes the difference between motivation and obsession. Loud people are motivated. They get hyped when they talk about their goals. Quiet people are obsessed. They live and breathe it. They don't need to speak on it because it's already part of who they are. When you reach that level of commitment, there's nothing to say. You just wake up and get to work. You can't measure a person's strength by how loud they are. You measure it by how consistent they stay when nobody notices them. You can fake confidence with words, but not with actions. You can shout about being a warrior, but the real ones don't need to declare it. Their scars, their endurance, their results say everything. The loud ones fade when it gets hard. The silent ones rise when it gets dark. They don't need to prove themselves. They prove it through persistence. There's something powerful about moving in silence. It's not arrogance. It's focus. It's a decision to put your energy where it actually matters, into doing, not talking. Every word you don't say becomes a weapon in your arsenal. Every moment you stay quiet while others brag, you're sharpening your skills, building your edge. Because when you finally speak through results, your silence will echo louder than their noise ever did. Most people want the world to see the process because they're addicted to being seen. The strong ones want the world to see the result because they're addicted to progress. And when that result shows up, there's no need for words. The work speaks for itself. That's the kind of statement you can't argue with. That's the kind of silence that commands respect. When you move quietly, life opens doors naturally. You're not forcing anything, not chasing approval. You're simply doing the work, letting the universe align with your effort. Noise distracts you from that alignment. It keeps you focused on how you look instead of who you're becoming. But when you stay silent, you start hearing your instincts. You start trusting yourself. You stop comparing and start becoming. Silence also teaches control. You stop reacting to every challenge, every insult, every doubt. You learn to let results do the talking. And once you master that, you become unstoppable. Because while others are wasting time defending their ego, you're busy building a life that doesn't need defending. So stop trying to be the loudest in the room. Stop trying to prove anything to anyone. Let your actions scream louder than your voice ever could. The ones who talk the most will fade. The ones who grind the hardest will rise. You don't have to announce your greatness. Just stay consistent until they have no choice but to notice. Because when the noise dies down, only results remain. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's discipline. It's patience. It's that calm before the storm. The moment before you unleash everything you've been building in private. And when that moment comes, the world will know who you are. Not because you said it, but because you proved it. That's real strength, quiet, focused, relentless, and undeniable. Discipline doesn't happen when everyone's watching. It's born in the dark, in the quiet hours when no one knows what you're doing. It's built when the alarm goes off and you don't want to get up, but you do anyway. It's in those silent moments when you could take the easy way out, but you refuse. That's where self-control is created, not through motivation, not through inspiration, but through repetition and pain. Discipline is forged in silence because silence removes every excuse. There's no cheering crowd, no applause, no validation, just you, your willpower, and the choice to keep going. When you're alone, that's when the truth of your discipline is revealed. There's no one to impress, no one to hold you accountable but yourself. That's the real test. It's easy to act disciplined when people are watching. It's easy to say the right words when it looks good. But the question is, what do you do when no one's looking? Do you still train? Do you still study? Do you still push when no one cares? Because that's the difference between pretending to have discipline and actually living it. The silence strips away everything fake. It exposes your habits. It shows you exactly where you stand. If you're not disciplined, silence will make that obvious. But if you are, it becomes your weapon. Because silence gives you space to build systems, routines, and focus that nobody else can see. It becomes your training ground. Every day you show up without needing recognition. You're building something inside that's unbreakable. Discipline is invisible at first. Nobody sees it. But when it compounds, it turns into strength, confidence, and power that can't be taken away. People misunderstand discipline. They think it's about control or perfection. It's not. It's about choosing the hard thing over and over again until it becomes natural. It's about doing what needs to be done even when every part of you wants to stop. The mind will always look for comfort, always look for shortcuts. Discipline is the refusal to listen to that weakness. It's saying no to your impulses. And that strength is only developed in silence. Because silence forces you to face those impulses without distraction. When there's no one to tell you what to do, no one to push you, you either crumble or you rise. That's what discipline does. It makes you rise on your own. It's not built through speeches, quotes, or hype videos. It's built through the grind, the lonely, quiet, repetitive grind. You build it when you go for that run in the rain, when you turn down the party to work on your craft, when you choose focus over comfort, pain over pleasure, growth over validation. That's where discipline breathes. In the silence, you start to realize that discipline isn't just an action. It's an identity. It's who you become when no one is there to guide you. It's not something you do. It's something you live. The ones who master understand that every small choice adds up. Every small act of discipline creates momentum. And once you build that momentum, it becomes almost impossible to stop. because silence trains your mind to stop needing external motivation. You learn to rely on the internal engine that drives you forward no matter what. The noise of the world kills discipline. Distractions, comparisons, opinions, they all chip away at focus. But silence brings it back. When you block out the noise, you stop caring about what others are doing and start locking in on your own path. You stop chasing results and start mastering process. And mastery only comes through quiet repetition. Every rep, every grind, every lonely morning. That's the real discipline. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's brutal, slow, and often invisible. But it's the only thing that separates those who talk about greatness from those who actually achieve it. There's a reason why disciplined people seem calm and composed. They've built peace through pressure. Silence gave them that. When you train yourself to work without noise, you stop being affected by chaos. You stop reacting to every emotion. You learn to move steady no matter what's happening around you. That's power. Discipline and silence together create unshakable control. You become your own leader, your own motivator, your own soldier. You don't wait for conditions to be perfect. You make them perfect by acting anyway. Discipline also teaches you respect for time, for effort, for pain. When you've worked in silence long enough, you realize how valuable every second is. You stop wasting time on things that don't serve your growth. You stop looking for easy wins. You stop trying to impress. You start valuing consistency over comfort. And that mindset changes everything. Because when you respect the process, the results naturally follow. People look for shortcuts because they don't want to face silence. They want quick results, immediate satisfaction, instant praise. But silence gives you none of that. It gives you work. It gives you struggle. It gives you doubt. And that's why it's powerful, because it forces you to grow without rewards. It forces you to keep going without reassurance. It's in that space where discipline becomes your default mode. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And start saying, it doesn't matter how I feel. When you've trained yourself in silence, you no longer depend on motivation. Motivation is temporary. It dies the moment things get uncomfortable. Discipline lives on because it's built from discomfort. It's not emotional. It's mechanical. You just do what needs to be done. You stop overthinking, stop negotiating with yourself. And once that switch flips, life changes. Everything that felt impossible starts to feel normal. The goals that seemed out of reach start becoming daily habits. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's a whisper that says, keep going when your body screams to stop. It's the quiet decision to do one more set, write one more page, take one more step. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. Every day you choose discipline, you become stronger than you were yesterday. And that's how real transformation happens. Not through big moments, but through thousands of small, silent choices that no one ever sees. The silence becomes your companion. It teaches you to trust yourself. It becomes a place where you refine your focus, sharpen your edge, and test your limits. Discipline grows there because silence is honest. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't lie. It shows you exactly how bad you want it. And once you prove to yourself that you can show up in silence, you no longer need validation from anyone. You become self-made in every sense, mentally, physically, emotionally. So stay quiet and stay consistent. Don't announce your grind. Don't wait for someone to push you. Push yourself. Discipline isn't about shouting what you'll do. It's about quietly doing it until it becomes part of you. That's the kind of strength that lasts. Because when life tests you, when everything falls apart, you won't need noise to keep you going. You'll already have the silent fire inside you. The one that was built when no one was there, when no one cared, when only you believed. That's real discipline. The kind that doesn't fade, doesn't break, and doesn't stop. Patience is something people talk about, but rarely practice, because silence is the place where patience is tested the hardest. When everything inside you wants to move fast, when you want results now, silence becomes the mirror that forces you to slow down and face reality. You can't rush growth, you can't rush strength, and you can't rush understanding. Silence teaches you that everything has its own timing. You can't force the process, you can only align yourself with it. The more you try to control outcomes, the more frustrated you become. But when you learn to be still, when you learn to move with patience, everything starts falling into place naturally. In silence, you start realizing that waiting isn't weakness, it's power under control. It's knowing you could act out of impulse, but choosing not to. It's knowing you could speak, react, or force something, but you hold back because you understand that timing matters more than speed. The world moves fast. Everyone wants instant gratification, instant success, instant validation. But the strongest people don't chase what's quick. They chase what's real. They stay quiet. They stay consistent, and they let time do its work. Because time is the ultimate test. It exposes fake progress and rewards real effort. Silence is where you learn to trust the process. It's where you learn that not every moment requires a reaction. Not every problem needs to be solved right now. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. When you can sit still and not panic, when you can stay calm in uncertainty, that's when you've truly grown. Patience doesn't mean you stop working. It means you work without desperation. It means you do your part and let life unfold how it's supposed to. That's what silence teaches you. How to move with purpose instead of fear. Most people lose because they react too quickly. They get emotional. They get impatient. They want results before they're ready for them. They plant a seed and dig it up the next day to see if it's growing. But the quiet ones, they understand that growth takes time. They know that silence is not the absence of progress. It's the space where progress is forming. Every moment of stillness, every second of calm is shaping you into someone more focused, more disciplined, more aware. That's why patience isn't passive. It's strategic. When you're silent, you learn to observe instead of react. You start to see things you would have missed in the noise. You notice opportunities others overlook. You sense timing others can't feel. You realize that sometimes the right moment to act is not when you want to, but when you're ready. And readiness only comes from silence, from sitting with your thoughts, learning from your failures, and letting clarity rise out of the chaos. The loud ones chase every moment. The quiet ones wait for the right one. And when that moment comes, they move with precision. Silence gives you control over your impulses. It trains your mind to hold back when it wants to explode. It builds a kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. You start to understand that every reaction, every outburst, every rushed move costs you something. Your peace, your energy, your focus. The patient ones keep all of that intact. They don't waste energy proving anything. They don't waste breath trying to explain. They just move when it's time, and when they move, it's deliberate, effective, and unstoppable. There's a reason storms start in silence. Everything powerful in nature builds quietly before it's unleashed. The same happens within you. The waiting, the quiet, the calm, that's your preparation. Every second you stay patient, you're building endurance. Every moment you resist reacting, you're sharpening your awareness. Silence turns impatience into focus. It transforms frustration into discipline. It gives you space to think clearly and make moves that actually count. People who can't handle silence always chase noise. They chase distractions because being still means facing themselves. It means realizing how much of their life is driven by reaction instead of intention. But when you learn to embrace silence, you become different. You stop being pulled by emotions. You stop rushing into things that don't deserve your energy. You start seeing how timing decides everything. Relationships, opportunities, growth, success. Silence gives you the patience to wait for what's truly meant for you instead of forcing what isn't. Timing is something that only silence can teach. When you're quiet, you start to notice the rhythm of life. You see how some things fall apart so better things can build. You see how waiting often saves you from mistakes you would have made if you'd rushed. You see how the best results come when you stop chasing and start aligning. You begin to understand that life has its own flow and your job isn't to control it. It's to stay ready for when it's your time. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop forcing everything. You stop trying to prove yourself, stop trying to make things happen faster than they should. You start trusting that if you keep putting in the work, the right doors will open. Silence teaches you to keep your head down and your heart steady. You keep working, keep showing up, and you let patience do what noise never could, bring you what's real. In silence, you also learn timing in relationships, timing in opportunities, timing in words. You stop speaking just to speak. You start listening. You stop acting out of emotion and start responding with clarity. That kind of control is rare, but it's what separates strong minds from weak ones. The impatient react, the patient respond. And the response always carries more power than the reaction. Patience doesn't mean you sit around doing nothing. It means you work with faith, not fear. You don't panic when results don't show up immediately. You don't question your path every time something feels slow. You understand that real growth takes time. Time to build, time to learn, time to become. The silent ones aren't lazy, they're steady. They know that when you move too fast, you miss the details. But when you move with timing, you hit the target every time. Silence teaches you that sometimes progress doesn't look like movement. It looks like stillness. It looks like taking a step back, breathing, observing, and waiting for your moment. The world might think you're doing nothing, but deep down, you're preparing. You're getting stronger, smarter, calmer. And when that silence turns into action, it shocks everyone. Because true preparation never announces itself. It just appears when the timing is right. You start to realize that patience isn't about waiting for things to happen. It's about working quietly while you wait. It's about trusting the process while staying consistent. It's about moving slow enough to stay in control, but steady enough to never stop. That's the secret of all great people. They understand that silence and timing go hand in hand. You don't rush the climb, you just keep climbing until you reach where you're meant to be. So stop fighting the silence. Stop trying to force your pace. The universe moves on its own time, and when you align your rhythm with it, things begin to flow naturally. You'll see how opportunities start appearing when you're ready, not when you're desperate. You'll see how the right people enter your life when you stop chasing the wrong ones. You'll see how progress starts feeling effortless when you stop forcing it. That's the reward of patience, peace. And that peace only comes from silence. Stay silent, stay patient, trust the timing. Everything that's meant for you will come, not when you demand it, but when you're ready to handle it. Silence will teach you that timing isn't about waiting. It's about preparing. And once you're prepared, nothing can stop what's meant to be yours. Clarity doesn't come from chaos. It doesn't come from constant noise, endless scrolling, or trying to be everywhere at once. Clarity comes from stillness, from stepping away, from being silent long enough to actually hear your own thoughts. Most people are so surrounded by noise that they forget what their own mind sounds like. They confuse business with progress, distraction with purpose. But when everything quiets down, when you take away the noise, that's when truth shows up. That's when your mind starts to clear. Silence gives you space to think, to breathe, to see things as they are, not as you wish they were. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about creating distance between yourself and the noise of the world. It's about slowing down enough to understand what really matters. When you're constantly moving, constantly reacting, your mind becomes cluttered with everything except focus. But in stillness, the unnecessary falls away. The things that used to feel urgent start to lose their grip. You begin to see what actually deserves your time, your energy, your effort. That's clarity, not knowing everything, but knowing what's worth it. Silence forces you to face your own mind. That's uncomfortable for most people because the truth is buried there. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities you try to outrun. But when you stop running and sit still, you start to see those things for what they are, signals, not limits. Stillness doesn't make your problems disappear. It makes them visible. It shows you the roots. And once you see them clearly, you can finally start dealing with them. That's why clarity doesn't come from talking about your problems. It comes from sitting with them until they reveal their lesson. When the mind is quiet, you start hearing the voice that's been drowned out by everything else, your own. You stop reacting to what people think, what they expect, what they say you should be doing. You start asking yourself, what do I really want? What feels right for me? That's the kind of clarity that can't be given to you. You have to earn it. You earn it by stepping back, by cutting the noise, by facing the silence. Stillness is where strength and direction are born. You start to realize that clarity isn't a sudden moment of enlightenment. It's the product of self-discipline. Every time you choose silence over noise, you sharpen your focus. Every time you stop yourself from reacting emotionally, you build control. Every time you take a deep breath before deciding, you strengthen your awareness. Over time, that awareness becomes second nature. You begin to move differently. You start to act with intention instead of impulse. In a world that never stops moving, stillness becomes a weapon. It keeps you from being swept away by trends, opinions, and chaos, anchors you. You start making decisions not from pressure, but from peace. You stop chasing everything that looks good and start building what actually lasts. And that happens because silence gives you perspective. It pulls you out of the fog long enough to see the bigger picture. Clarity doesn't scream, it whispers. You can only hear it when your mind is calm enough to listen. That's why stillness is so powerful. It's not about being passive, it's about being precise. It's about knowing when to act, where to direct your energy, and what to let go of. Most people waste their strength on things that don't matter because they never stop long enough to question if they even matter. But silence changes that. It teaches you to ask better questions, not what should I do, but why am I doing it? That one question can change everything. When you find stillness, you also find balance. You stop being controlled by emotions, distractions, or expectations. You begin to respond to life instead of reacting to it. That's the difference between chaos and clarity. Chaos makes you move without thinking. Clarity makes you move with purpose. And once you start living with purpose, life stops feeling random. You stop being pulled by every wave and start steering your own direction. Stillness also gives you awareness of what drains you. You start noticing how certain people, habits, or environments cloud your mind. You realize that clarity isn't just about thinking clearly. It's about protecting your energy. You can't think straight when your life is filled with noise that doesn't serve you. So you start cutting it out slowly, quietly, without announcing it. You stop explaining your peace and start guarding it. Because once you've tasted mental clarity, you'll never go back to mental clutter. When you operate from stillness, you stop chasing validation. You realize that most of the noise in life comes from trying to prove something to others. But in silence, there's nothing to prove. There's only progress. You stop needing to announce every move because you're too focused on making it count. Clarity makes you humble. It teaches you that real confidence doesn't need to shout. It just exists. The mind that is clear doesn't seek recognition. It seeks growth. You also learn that clarity is not constant. It's something you have to maintain. The world will always try to pull you back into distraction, comparison, and noise. But every time you return to silence, every time you choose stillness, you reset. It's like cleaning a dirty window. The view was always there. You just couldn't see it. Silence wipes away the fog. It brings back your focus, your direction, your inner compass. Clarity and stillness also teaches gratitude. When you slow down, you begin to notice things you used to overlook. The small wins, the lessons in failure, the beauty in simple moments. You start realizing that not everything has to be loud to be meaningful. Some of the best things in life happen quietly. Growth, healing, understanding. The mind that can appreciate silence is a mind that's finally at peace with itself. Stillness doesn't mean you stop moving. It means your movement becomes deliberate. It's the calm before every strong decision, the breath before every great action. It's where chaos turns into clarity and confusion turns into confidence. You stop rushing, you stop overthinking, you just see things for what they are, and you move accordingly. That's the kind of power silence gives you, not the power to control everything, but the power to stay unshaken no matter what happens. When you learn to find clarity in stillness, life starts to simplify. You no longer get lost in noise that doesn't matter. You stop being pulled in 10 different directions. You become centered. Every step you take, every word you speak, every goal you chase, it all comes from a place of awareness instead of anxiety. And that's when things start to align naturally. The right opportunities, the right people, the right ideas, they all come when your mind is still enough to recognize them. So slow down, step back, get quiet. Don't rush clarity, let it find you. Sit with yourself long enough to understand yourself, because when your mind becomes still, everything becomes clear. Your purpose, your path, your power. And once you see it, you'll realize that what you were chasing was never outside of you. It was always within you, waiting in the silence. When you finally master silence, life begins to align in ways you could never force. Everything starts to flow, not because the world suddenly got easier, but because you stopped fighting it. You stopped trying to control every outcome, every reaction, every opinion. You started trusting the process, trusting yourself, trusting the quiet rhythm of growth. Silence teaches you that alignment isn't about having everything perfect. It's about having everything real. When you move from stillness, every action carries weight. Every decision comes from purpose. You stop chasing and start attracting. There's a moment when silence turns from uncomfortable to powerful. At first, it feels empty. You want to fill it with noise, with validation, with distraction. But as you stay in it, you realize that silence isn't emptiness. It's full of answers. It's full of awareness, lessons, truth. And when you master it, you begin to notice how naturally things start to fall into place. The people who belong in your life stay. The ones who don't drift away without drama. Opportunities that match your energy appear. You no longer have to push, prove, or beg. You just move with calm precision. When you master silence, you master yourself. You stop being a prisoner to emotion. You stop reacting to every insult, every setback, every opinion that doesn't align with yours. You understand that silence isn't weakness. It's control. It's power disguised as calm. When you stay silent, you stop feeding chaos with your energy. You stop fighting battles that don't matter. You choose peace over ego. And that peace clears a path for everything meant for you to find its way. Life begins to align when you understand that not everything needs your voice. Some things need your patience. Some things need your distance. Silence teaches you timing, when to move, when to wait, when to walk away. Most people destroy their peace by forcing things before they're ready. They rush outcomes. They chase validation. They talk when they should listen. But silence slows you down. It keeps you grounded. It lets life unfold at its natural pace. And in that patience, everything aligns, not instantly, but inevitably. The reason silence brings alignment is because it removes resistance. When you stop talking so much about what you want and start working quietly for it, the universe responds. You move differently. You start focusing on what's within your control, your effort, your mindset, your consistency. You stop wasting energy on things that drain you. You stop explaining your dreams to people who don't get them. You stop justifying your growth. And suddenly, everything that once felt out of reach starts to move toward you, not by luck, but by alignment. There's a quiet confidence that comes with mastering silence. You no longer need recognition to feel worthy. You no longer seek applause to feel successful. You don't need to announce every move because your work will speak louder than any words ever could. That's alignment, when your actions and your purpose are so connected that you don't need validation to keep going. You move in silence, and the results make the noise. When you live in silence long enough, you learn to listen, not just to others, but to yourself, to the world, to the subtle signals that guide you. You start recognizing what feels right and what doesn't. You notice energy shifts, gut instincts, small details that used to be drowned out by noise. And that awareness helps you move with precision. You stop wasting time on distractions disguised as opportunities. You stop letting emotions make your choices. You start trusting your intuition. That's what alignment really means, when your heart, your mind, and your actions are finally speaking the same language. Silence also brings acceptance. You stop needing everything to happen your way. You understand that rejection isn't punishment, it's redirection. You start seeing delays as protection. You start realizing that everything happens when it's supposed to, not when you demand it. That's the beauty of silence. It humbles you. It teaches you to trust the timing of your journey instead of forcing it. You no longer panic when things don't go your way because you know that what's meant for you can't miss you. And what misses you is never meant to stay. When you master silence, you move with calm even in chaos. You stop being shaken by circumstances because your peace no longer depends on them. You've built your stability from the inside. So even when the world gets loud, even when people doubt you, even when things don't go as planned, you stay centered. That's what alignment feels like, not perfection, but peace in motion. It's when you can stand still inside yourself, no matter what's happening around you. Life rewards that kind of stillness, because when you operate from peace, you make better decisions. You're no longer reacting from fear or ego. You're responding from clarity and purpose. You attract situations that reflect that energy. You start seeing how everything connects. The struggle, the lessons, the pain, the growth. You realize nothing was random. Every moment of silence, every setback, every pause had a purpose to prepare you for alignment. Silence also teaches gratitude. You start appreciating where you are instead of obsessing over where you're not. You realize that progress doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes growth is invisible until one day you wake up and realize you've become someone stronger, calmer, more grounded. That's what happens when you master silence. Transformation happens quietly, and then suddenly it's undeniable. When you stop trying to force outcomes, life finds its rhythm. You begin to understand that alignment doesn't mean everything goes your way. It means everything goes the right way. Even when it hurts, even when it's uncertain, you trust that every closed door is part of the redirection. You stop complaining. You stop explaining. You stay quiet. You keep working. You keep moving. And before you know it, what you once chased starts finding its way back to you. There's freedom in that. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing to control everything. When you stop measuring your worth by how fast you're moving. When you realize that silence doesn't slow you down, it sharpens your focus. It gives you time to listen to your instincts, to feel your emotions, to plan your next step with intention. That's when life aligns, when you stop running and start walking with purpose. Silence becomes your strength. You learn to protect your energy. You learn to speak only when necessary, to act only when it's meaningful. You stop scattering your power through constant talking, overthinking, and explaining. You start channeling it into creation. Every action you take carries a different energy because it comes from a grounded place. That's when your life shifts. That's when things begin to flow your way. Not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. Mastering silence doesn't mean disappearing. It means showing up differently. It means you're no longer desperate for attention. You're focused on evolution. You're no longer rushing the process. You're trusting it. You understand that the universe speaks softly, and the only way to hear it is through silence. So you stay still, you stay patient, and you let things unfold. Because deep down, you know what's yours will come, not through noise, not through force, but through alignment. So stay silent. Keep moving. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Let your peace confuse those who expect you to react. Let your calm become your power. When you master silence, you don't chase life. Life meets you where you are. And that's when everything finally starts to come natural.